Welcome to The Explainer. Let's dive right into what is honestly one of the most baffling business cases out there. We're talking about the incredible paradox of Europe's largest, and yeah, probably its most complained about airline. If you've ever flown across Europe, you almost certainly have a story about them. And let's be real, it might not be a super pleasant one. We are, of course, talking about Ryanair. You know them for the endless hidden fees, the totally stressful boarding process, and the absolute lack of legroom. But behind all that public outrage, there lies an unbelievably complex and brilliant modern business strategy.
So here is the crucial point to keep in mind. Think about this number, 180 million. Despite having a truly terrible reputation for customer service, Ryanair somehow flies an incredible 180 million passengers every single year. It's like, for every person who swears up and down they will never ever fly with them again, another person is right there clicking book. How on earth does a company with such massive public backlash continue to grow and just totally dominate the European skies?
Well, it really all boils down to a price tag exactly like this, $10. I mean, it almost seems impossible, right? It sets up this fascinating mystery. How do they actually make any money when they're basically giving the seats away for free? As you'll see, nothing they do is by accident. Literally every single annoyance you experience is a highly calculated revenue stream. Section 1. Blueprint of a budget airline. So let's rewind a bit. When Tony Ryan founded the airline back in 1984, it was literally just one plane. But if they tried to expand throughout the 80s, they just hemorrhaged money. Enter Michael O'Leary. He was hired in the 90s with one clear mandate: ruthlessly cut costs. What's super fascinating here is that O'Leary actually went over to the US, studied Southwest Airlines, and had this light bulb moment. He realized he needed to treat airline operations exactly like a McDonald's assembly line. The ultimate goal? Ultra efficiency, rock-bottom prices, and stripping away absolutely anything that wasn't legally required just to get a plane up in the air.
Section 2. Anatomy of a cheap flight. If we track a typical passenger's journey chronologically, we can actually expose this hidden money-making machinery at every single stage of the trip. It all kicks off with the booking process, which is handled 100% online to completely cut out any travel agency commissions. Now, because those super cheap base tickets avoid government taxes on add-ons, Ryanair completely dominates price comparison websites. You see a $10 flight, and obviously you click it. But you want to sit next to your family? Extra. Need to bring a suitcase bigger than a backpack? Extra. Forget to check in online before you get there? That is going to cost you a massive fee at the airport. These hidden fees add up so fast that they often amount to way more than the actual airfare itself. And the extremes of this monetization go unbelievably far. It's literally been pointed out by articles that it can sometimes be cheaper to legally change your own name and get a brand new passport than to pay Ryanair's fee, which can be over €100, just to correct a minor typo on your ticket. No joke. This extreme policy just showcases how rigid and, frankly, how fiercely monetized their whole booking system is designed to be. But the cost-cutting doesn't stop once you hit the booking confirmation. Notice how there are virtually zero Ryanair check-in desks at the airport? That simple move saves them millions in staff costs. And have you ever noticed that you always seem to have to walk forever to get to your gate? Well, that's because Ryanair intentionally rents the cheapest, most inconvenient gates available. They don't pay for those fancy sky bridges either, so yeah, you'll be walking out on the tarmac or taking a bus. Plus, half the time you aren't even flying into the main city. You're flying into a secondary airport like 50 miles away that gave Ryanair a massive discount just to drag tourists out there. Section 3. The masterclass in efficiency. Okay, comparing a traditional legacy airline cabin with Ryanair's bare-bones approach reveals some genuinely wild tactics. For instance, they removed the seat pockets entirely and just printed the safety info directly onto the headrests. Why? Because it physically stops people from leaving trash in the pockets. That means the flight attendants can clean the entire plane in literally 30 minutes between flights. They also use non-reclining seats because they're way cheaper to buy and maintain. And the pilots flying you? A lot of them aren't even traditional Ryanair employees. They're hired as independent contractors so the company can avoid paying for health insurance or severance. Which naturally brings us to the infamous Seat 11A. If you get stuck in this seat, you paid extra for a window, but you are literally just staring at a blank plastic wall. This isn't a mistake. It's the direct result of Ryanair legally cramming 200 passengers into a Boeing 737 that was originally designed to hold only about 170. More seats equals less legroom, misaligned windows, and vastly more profit per flight. Now, here is where the strategy gets super counterintuitive. You'd probably think the absolute cheapest airline would fly old, beat-up, used planes, right? Actually, wrong. Surprisingly, they buy massive fleets of brand new planes. By buying only one single model, the Boeing 737, and buying them in huge bulk orders, they negotiate a massive discount. Plus, long-term, brand new planes save an absolute fortune on fuel. And because they only use one model of plane, they only need one type of spare part, one type of mechanic, and they only have to train their crew on one standard process. It is just brilliant. So, what is the final payoff for all these hidden fees, remote airports, and operational tricks? Well, to put it in perspective, the global average profit margin for an airline is hovering right around a measly 2.7%. European airlines, maybe they hit 6%. Ryanair, they routinely clear a staggering 35% profit margin. It absolutely dwarfs the rest of the entire airline industry. Make no mistake, they are a hyper-efficient money-making machine, completely disguised as a budget carrier. Section 4. The economics of outrage. Listen to this unbelievable statement from CEO Michael O'Leary when he was asked about that hefty fee for printing a boarding pass at the airport. He literally leaned right into the controversy, giving these blunt, shocking responses to passenger complaints specifically to generate headlines. He straight up calls the customers stupid. Any normal CEO would be fired for this instantly, but for Ryanair, this is entirely by design. O'Leary is constantly floating these wild, outrageous ideas to the press. Over the years, he's talked about charging passengers to use the bathroom, ripping out toilets to cram in more seats, implementing a fat tax for heavier passengers, and even selling standing room-only tickets. But here's the secret. None of these absurd ideas were ever actually going to happen. They were simply floated out there to create massive outrage. And the crazy part? O'Leary openly admits to this. This deliberate provocation saves Ryanair an absolute fortune in traditional marketing and PR budgets. I mean, why spend millions on TV commercials when the news is going to write thousands of articles about your crazy standing room only idea entirely for free? The outrage drives a ton of traffic straight to their website, and once people get there and see those $10 flights, well, they end up booking anyway. And this unapologetic, zero-empathy mindset, it fully extends to genuine service failures as well. When hundreds of passengers were stranded overnight due to a canceled flight and they asked the airline for accommodation, O'Leary's response was incredibly blunt. Absolutely not. You booked a flight, not a hotel. Where traditional airlines would bend over backwards to offer goodwill gestures, vouchers, and apologies, Ryanair offers absolutely none of it. They have literally trained their customers to expect zero empathy. Fast forward to today, and this exact strategy has perfectly translated to the digital age. Their social media accounts have completely embraced their stingy reputation. When a customer tweeted a complaint about narrow stairs, the airline fired back, "Bring your own plane next time." When someone complained about not getting a window, they simply said, "Read that again but slowly, you paid for a seat." They mercilessly troll their own customers to drive viral engagement. Like one person perfectly noted, they charge extra for literally everything, except Twitter roasts. It just cements their brand identity as the undeniably cheap, no-nonsense option. Section 5. The method to the madness. So, as we wrap things up here, what does this whole system actually mean for you and me, the everyday traveler? Really, it comes down to the ultimate trade-off. Yes, the passenger reality is objectively uncomfortable, but Ryanair is brutally, refreshingly honest about exactly what they are. They aren't out here pretending to be some luxury carrier. In exchange for your legroom, your patience, and maybe your sanity, they provide an extreme logistical efficiency that actually democratizes travel. They give regular people the option to fly across Europe for less than the cost of a train ticket, or honestly, a decent dinner. Which leaves us with this final, genuinely fascinating question to ponder. Is sacrificing your basic comfort, and frankly, sometimes your dignity, actually worth a $10 flight? At the end of the day, do we really value comfort as much as we say we do, or do we just want the absolute cheapest possible way to get from point A to point B? Ryanair has bet 180 million times a year that we just want the cheap seat. Thanks so much for exploring this wild topic with me in today's Explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.